Paige, you ready?
Been getting better.
All right, I'll call this June 18th, 2025, Patton Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 5:36. If we can all stand for the saying of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving forward. If our elected officials can have their mics up, that would be great. So I want to welcome those of you who may be in attendance, probably virtually, as well as CNET here. Welcome here to Patton Township, a place that we like to say, a place for all. Any additions to the posted agenda? Seeing none, moving to public comments. Any residents or taxpayers may address the board on issues of interest to the townships. Any comments related to items on the agenda, we just ask that you wait until that is on the docket. So any public comments? All right, seeing none, moving forward. Presentations, public hearings. So proclamation designating June as Caribbean Heritage Month.
So I don't know if you want to read that or what you want to do with that. Just want to approve it.
Yeah, we are not going to read that right now. Please know that does not speak to its importance. We're just aware that there is a lot to get through, so we are going to pass on that, but we definitely want to make sure we're appreciative for honoring this Caribbean American heritage. So I will take a motion to approve this proclamation.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion seconded. Comments?
Second, I do have a comment about, I think we should also have a proclamation for Juneteenth, which is tomorrow.
I thought we did.
I thought we did one.
Yeah, I thought we did.
We did.
Did we do one in May?
We did a
But the day is
Juneteenth.
tomorrow.
But today's the day. Wait,
Today-
tomorrow's the day.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we did one.
Yeah, we did the proclamation, I think, last.
I think we did it in the last
May.
meeting.
We did.
14th.
Oh, boy. Memory's going.
The banks are closed tomorrow.
Banks are closed tomorrow.
We could always do it for 2026 if you want to get a jump on it.
Well, any other comments? All right, all of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, moving forward, our proclamation designating June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month.
Again, I don't know if you want to read this one or not.
You know what, given, let me look here, yeah. Given what's just happening nationally, I think all efforts towards solidarity is important. And so I would actually like to read this, as well as some of the decisions from the Supreme Court today, looking at trans care. So, whereas in June of each year we celebrate lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, LGBTQ plus Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall riots that took place in June of 1969 and are recognized as a catalyst of the movement for LGBTQ plus rights. And whereas all Patton Township residents should be able to live and work in a safe and inclusive community free from discrimination. And whereas our LGBTQ plus community members are integral contributors to our social, civic, economic, artistic, cultural, spiritual, and academic vitality in the State College area and Center region. recognizing and valuing the uniqueness in each of us empowers all of us. And whereas we recognize that discrimination and exclusion continue to exist in the daily lives of LGBTQ+ individuals, and whereas the Patton Township is committed to protecting the civil rights of our LGBTQ+ community members, and we stand in solidarity with LGBTQ+ Americans and their ongoing struggle against discrimination and injustice. And whereas the Patton Township Board of Supervisors and staff remain committed to ensuring its policies and practices do not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of Patton Township, Center County, Pennsylvania, that we hereby recognize the month of June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Proclaim this 18th day of June. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
That's great.
All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, proposed ordinance 2025-648, amending chapter 425 to create home-based businesses.
So as we discussed at our May 28th meeting, I believe, this ordinance will amend our regulations to create two classes of home-based businesses, a no-impact business and a low-impact business. It also prohibits certain classes of businesses from being considered a home-based business. So those would be businesses that are more intrusive to a neighborhood, like a landscaping company or a tree removal service. So this has been advertised and is ready for your action tonight.
Okay, so I need to open public hearing. Any questions? Any feedback? Seeing nothing, so I can just close it, or I make a motion. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
All right. Public hearing's closed. Right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'll take a motion to approve ordinance 2025-648.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussions?
I just have one question, and sorry I missed it when we looked at it earlier. A snow removal services, so that's item 311 or H11, B11, I guess. I get it that if somebody's doing this full-blown, I was going to say full-time, but we obviously don't have snow year-round, that they would have a lot of equipment. But I'm also thinking of probably people who do this as needed, and they just have a plow in the front of their truck. And they drive around town all winter long with a plow in the front of the truck. So that's snow removal services. As I can imagine that just seems a little.
So our concern is not the person who puts a plow on their pickup truck.
That's what I thought.
At all, just because that person likely can put that in their driveway and
Totally.
it's totally,
Okay.
our concern is the landscape companies. We have a company that's operating in Park Forest right now, that they have equipment all over their front yard, and it's not, the neighbors see it every day.
Okay.
Right? It's intrusive
For
to the
sure.
neighbors. So we don't want something that disrupts the neighborhood.
didn't realize
Looks like
there
a
was a-
commercial business is being run there.
And all of these are grandfathered, or the ones that are existing are grandfathered, so.
No, they have to apply to get a permit from us.
Oh, even the car mechanic person?
Correct.
Oh,
Everyone that is operating a home-based business now must get a permit from the township. And we're doing our best to reach out, again, to the property that's in Park Forest, to the owner of that property, to get some kind of an exit strategy for the equipment piece of it. The office piece of it can stay, because the office piece is not intrusive to the neighborhood. But we're trying to make an effort to do some outreach to say, this is what's going on, this is what the township has adopted, you need to now move those vehicles, and, because we've been talking with this particular company for a while.
Okay. But you're talking about I think it's on Canterbury or?
I don't think he is still here.
Oh, okay, I must be out of that. Okay. Because I did think that there was almost even a state law about grandfathering uses that are there. Okay, good. That was a challenging issue when before us. Okay, thank you.
Elliot?
If we never officially approved that use in the first place, there's nothing to be grandfathered.
Correct.
Okay. I must totally misremember.
Yeah, like I said, I don't believe that business is still here.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I don't believe.
We don't
so.
want one coming back. Okay, or coming in, I should say. Yeah, great. So thank you for letting me ask those questions.
Any other comments, questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on, financial statement presentation. Oh, God.
So Larry, do you want to introduce this one?
Sure. The township's auditors, Brian Plus, have provided us with a draft of their audit and review of the township's financial activities for 2024. I know the agenda says the audit manager from Brian Plus will provide an overview, but it's really our partner in charge, Wanda Lynn. She's going to provide us with an overview of the financial statements, the draft of the financial statements, and how the audit went. So Wanda, you're up.
All right, thank you very much, Larry. So I'm going to give a very high-level overview. If you have questions, certainly feel free to ask. And if anything comes up after this meeting, feel free to, contact me at any time. So in front of you is the draft of our auditor's report. And as far as just want to clarify, the draft, we just need approval, and then we'll do our subsequent events.
Okay, Wanda, can you hold on a second? We're having a problem with the sound in the room. So.
Okay.
We might need you to use your outside voice, but I don't know yet.
Use your outside voice inside, please.
Wanda, why don't you speak again and see if it's better?
Okay, can you hear me?
Better.
Better.
It's better, so just we'll try to power through it.
You might need to
Okay.
use your outside.
Like a snowplow.
So the draft financial statements will be finalized as soon as we do subsequent event inquiries and get assigned management representation letter. So do not anticipate any changes to what is being presented this evening. So just wanted to point out on your auditor's report in the opinion, the second paragraph there, that is the most important part of this statement. It's telling you that your statements are fairly presented in all material respects. You have an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that you can receive. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of the wording there. I'm just going to skip around to a couple pages and point out a couple things. So as I'm sure you're aware from previous years, for government financial statements, you have a government-wide, which is this presentation, and then you also have the fund statements that you're used to seeing. So the reason I want to point out the government-wide here, this includes, all of your fixed assets here, which are the main assets that you have. That, as you can see, it's over 28 million. And when you go down into the net position, you're going to see that this year, the township did move into a deficit position. So part of that is for government-wide. It does include your liabilities related to your net pension liability and also your compensated absences, which are significant dollars, 1.3 million combined for those two. So wanted to just point that out. And then as far as the government fund financial statements, this is how you normally get your reports. You see them on a fund basis. So this is the modified cash basis, modified cash, modified accrual. And also you're in a deficit position, which, so this is in the general fund here. Unassigned deficit was 904,000. And then over in your other funds, you had 34,321 of a deficit position. So these are positions that you're going to want to address, and we do have a recommendation on a policy that I'll point out in a different letter. So for the year, as far as a revenue and expense, you can see for the general fund, which is the first column, you had the net change in fund balance. It was a negative 807,329. On this particular statement, that includes capital outlays. So you do spend you spent over $1 million on capital outlays this past year. So that does create this negative position. And when you combine all of the funds, it was a negative 397,000 for the year. So then I'm going to point out 3 notes to the financial statements because they'll be referenced in a different letter. And the first is pension plans. Just want to point out that pensions include significant estimates to your financial statements. They're very complicated, and basically the information is pulled from the actuarial reports that you have. So at the end of the year end, your net pension liability was $526,665. And then skipping to note 11, that is just pointing out your fund balance positions. You have various categories: restricted, assigned, unassigned. And again, it's showing in total for the unassigned fund deficit of $939,000. The paragraph underneath of that is saying that that is in the general fund and the hydrant fund, and that the township plans to increase real estate taxes and assessments revenue to cover these deficits. The last note I'm going to point out is prior period adjustment note. So during this year's audit, we did notice 2 things that were material to the financial statements that required us to adjust your beginning net position. Excuse me. And so the first is the water authority, that had closed many years ago. We're just recognizing the cash that was contributed to the township. That was $181,070. That's not new money. It's money that the township had. It just was not in your financial statements. And then there were also 2 grants that you had spent the money in the prior year, met the requirements to receive the revenue, but the receivables were not reported. And that totaled $282,184. And so that was shown as a prior period adjustment. So that was all I was going to show related to the financial statements, because I know you have a lot on your agenda, but that's a very quick overview there. The next letter here is a management letter. And so this is, we go through and we just want to communicate that we do feel that the grant revenue recognition, we're considering that a material weakness since it wasn't caught previously. Grants are very difficult to track, and it is a challenge for many governments. I highly suspect that we won't be talking about this again. Larry understands what we're talking about here, and I'm sure this won't be an issue going forward. So we're just recommending that for the financial statements that you monitor the grants, and sometimes that means you have to talk to other departments too, to make sure that you know when you have earned the revenue, that you have all the costs that are allowed for reimbursement. And then the fund balance policy, which is what I had mentioned, we are recommending that you adopt an actual fund balance policy in your management discussion and analysis, which is part of your audited financial statements. You always say that you have a goal of 8 to 12% of general fund expenditures that you want to have as a fund balance, and you have not been able to achieve that in recent years. And so just wanting to recommend that you formalize a policy, and it will help you to make it a clear target for you to have and maintain a healthy fund balance to keep the township strong financially. So I'm not going to read it word for word, but that's essentially what we're recommending in the policy. And then the final letter is a required audit communication letter that we have to give to you, and basically at a high level here, it's just saying that we did audit the township and that we've communicated this in the engagement letter, that we followed our ethical standards. As far as the significant risks identified, the first two listed here are required by auditing standards. The third one for accounts payable, again, we had no issues related to that. And the fourth one there was related to the pension, just saying again that that is a significant estimate in your financial statements. So related to all of these risks, the only issue that we found was related to the grant reporting. There were no other issues related to any of these significant risks. Significant accounting policies, they're all detailed in your financial statements. Note 1. Note 2 does mention that there was a new accounting standard this past year. It did not have any impact to your financial statements. Again, significant accounting estimates is the pension. And then there's a section for financial statement disclosures. I pointed out the 3 that we mentioned here in this letter. We did not encounter any difficulties. And as far as we're listing here some material adjustments that we proposed, we've already talked about 3 of them related to the prior period adjustments. We didn't have any disagreements with management. You didn't consult other accountants. There are no other matters or findings that we need to communicate. And the rest is just talking about the supplementary information that's in your financial statements. So that is a super quick review of your financial statements. I think I was able to do it within your 15 minutes there, but I am
Good job, Wanda.
happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Wanda, for that concise presentation.
Sure.
I have a thought or two, but I will throw it out to the board. Any questions, comments, reactions?
I was going to ask about the formal statement of maintaining a certain fund balance. Is that something that we would agree to and then either write it? I guess we would actually have to announce it on for an agenda. And
Yes, we would have to bring, we would present that to the board.
Okay.
Amy and I will work on that, formalizing that policy, and then we would bring it back to the board and the board would have to approve it.
Yeah,
correct?
and when we did this, we did a fund balance policy over in Harris, and we collected fund balance policies from other areas. And what I liked about it was that in the policy that was adopted in Harris, we actually listed when the supervisors would stray from that policy. So for example, it says in there, we'll raise taxes to keep ourselves at this level. We'll stray from this policy in this particular situation. And it was good because it's very transparent then, so it lays out to our residents exactly what we're doing to make sure that we have basically a savings account to keep ourselves going.
Sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, so relatedly, I guess that was going to be my wondering of how do we stay within the bounds of 8 to 12%, and that would come through increased revenue or decrease in expenditures.
Correct. And so when we do the budget right now, and of course Larry and I have only done 2 budgets together, but when we do the budget right now, last year we sat down and that's the first thing we looked at. We went through and said, why are these expenditures so high? Where can we move things from? What can we cut? What's going on? And trying to dive deep into that. So yes, it would be that we would come to you and say, we've done everything we can on this side. This is everything that we've cut. If you want to maintain that fund balance, this is what we need to do to keep at that fund balance level.
Which is what we did in the budget last year, and
Last year.
that's where we ended up with the 1 mil increase.
We've also had that discussion. right?
Yes,
But this just formalizes it.
yes,
It makes
this
it
would just
transparent.
formalize that
Yeah.
discussion, yes.
Yeah, I guess,
That's great.
obviously for transparency, that's good. Obviously for accountability too, because then there's more emphasis on trying to actually cost cut and find savings so that we're not raising taxes. I guess the wondering though, like forecasting, if we do adopt a more formal policy to stay between 8 to 12%, like can we forecast how many tax increases potentially? Because there's only going to be so much we can cut, and I think we're running pretty lean right now. But like, do we know like every 2-3 years we're expecting to?
So we forecasted in our budget last year a 1% a 1 mil increase in 2025.
Oh, yeah,
A
yeah.
1 mil increase in 2026, maintain no increase in 2027 and 2028, because we did a 5-year, and then in 2029, it starts coming back down again. That's what we forecasted last year. So yes, we would forecast that every year to maintain that fund balance where we need it to be.
And you could also put in that fund balance policy, and I believe we did this in Harris, I don't 100% remember, but you can put in there that when you hit that target and you've maintained it for a year or two, and you see the fund balance growing, that you'll then start lowering taxes to keep it just within that range, so that our residents know we're not just raising taxes every year, we're actually trying to be very, cautious of how we're spending their money.
It's always a fear it goes up.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
I thought?
I'm just thinking hypothetically, though, we could potentially see, within a 5-10 year time span, multiple years of tax increases.
We don't want to.
You
Yeah,
don't want to, but yes, you
But
can.
yeah.
Yeah,
It-
and the other thing, and I know that when Tom Kurtz was the manager here, and Elliot remembers Tom a long time ago, they actually would raise taxes a little bit at a time, 1/10 of a mil, 1/10 of a mil, 1/10 of a mil. Every year to get to a certain fund balance. So 1/10 of a mil isn't as big of a hit to a resident as a mill is. Understanding that all taxes are not great when you have to raise them, but having this in place, and then I think the joke with residents is always, you're gonna raise the taxes, you're never gonna lower them. But having a stated goal that we don't wanna do this ad nauseum, we wanna be able to lower them at some point and level off.
yeah, but I think having that policy, though, again, with the idea of transparency as well as, just more clarity for residents on the rationale, behind this. I think that would be helpful for that.
I just wanted to interject an approach I take in discussing taxes is to, especially the local ones that people are very familiar with, and they know that I'm sort of in charge of them. So I have a number of services, taxes are for services, and that I can rattle off. But the biggest one is roads and safety. And I look at our police department, which is our largest part of our budget. And so I just frame it that way. I get it. Nobody likes to, not everybody can. It's tight for everybody these days. But I think I just kind of flip it if I can and look at the positive, look at what we're getting for those taxes.
Of course, when you're looking at the services, of course, are increasing in cost every year. You have cost of living increases, you have to pay the police officers, you have to pay the road crew, the cost of salt goes up, et cetera, et cetera. On the revenue side, there's an organic growth. And for a long time, Patton Township was growing fast. So that organic growth was covering the increase in the expenditures. However, Patton Township has slowed down in their organic growth down to 1%, 1.25%. So without the organic growth, you then have the choice of you either cut services or you increase taxes. And last year, what we did is we cut back on some positions. As you know, the Assistant Township Manager for Public Works we purposely left that position open for 6 months to save on the expenditure side. And unfortunately, we had to increase taxes to get our financial position and our fund balance starting to move back up again.
There was a recommendation for better communication with grants, that fund.
Yeah, so part of the problem is we have grants that we get and they're multi-year grants. So a good example is the Atherton Street Signal Coordination Project. That project was actually started in 2022 and we're just finishing it now. So those grants stretch out over years. I'm not a finance director or an accountant. That is Larry's job. And so Larry and I had a conversation about this, and I was like, well, but we spent the money this year. And he's like, no, we actually realized the money in a different year. So it's on his side of things, but we understand what they're saying. And again, with these being multi-year grants, that makes it a little bit of a challenge because of
So
when they come in.
so at the end of the year, the plan is that at the end of the year, that we sit down as a team, including Tyler, including Public Works, and including Amy, and we go down the list of grants that are open at the end of the year, and my job will be to determine if we met the requirements of that grant to post or book that grant in the current year, or if that grant goes in, is it going to go into 2025 or 2026? So that will be decided. It's a similar process that we do with accounts payable. An invoice comes in, the electric bill comes in at the end of the year or in January. It's really for electricity for December. So I book that into the year where it goes. We have to have this process that is very routine on the expenditure side for us, but it's new on the revenue side. So it will be routine in the future.
Help me understand so you said when we've met the requirements.
Yes, so if we have a grant that's a reimbursement grant.
Got it.
Once we have once we've paid the money, okay, then we wait till we get the checks clear, then we take the invoices and the cleared checks and we submit those to the state. And the state then sends us the reimbursement. We may have spent everything in December. We may not get the money until February. However, we met our requirement of spending the money in December. So we would book that revenue in December as opposed to booking it in February. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
What do townships do who don't have a financial manager? Do they just, it makes it very difficult for them to
Yes.
handle
Yes.
grants, especially, I
Yes.
guess? Okay.
Yep. Wow.
Supervisor,
Oh, I'm sorry, Elliot. My bad.
No, I was waiting until you were finished.
No, go ahead, I'm done.
oh, go ahead.
From a long history of experience, I just wanted to point out that I think that forecasting is hazardous when it relates to the future.
Yes, it is.
I had a retort to that, but
Anything else?
I won't say it.
I do want to, again, thank Wanda.
Yeah.
I again want to say it's an unqualified opinion, so the financial statements are correct, so. There's just some recommendations that Brown Plus is making that we are definitely going to implement.
Yeah, and again, I know I think I say this every year probably, but, you know, what we see in the news with different municipalities and counties, sort of like embezzlement and stuff like that. I
Exactly.
get sometimes when there's a lack of resources, there's a lack of oversight, and, you know, some of that stuff happens, but I'm glad that y'all are good stewards of, you know, the taxpayers' dollars, and, yeah. just-
Well, one thing good this year was Wanda is our new partner in charge this year, so it was fresh eyes on it, so. So having fresh eyes on it opened, you know, us to a lot more conversations, because if we have the same auditors every year, they understand your process. Wanda and I and Amy and sat down and just had a lot more conversations than we normally would have, so that's good news.
And I guess a wonder I do have, though, is, it seems, I know they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and we are doing well, and I wonder, like, are there ways that y'all feel like you can streamline the processes that y'all do to make this more,
do
like,
that.
efficient?
We
Y'all constantly
we
have-
look at that constantly, yeah. So,
Grants
you know.
are, I just got a request for a report for something we did in 2023.
Yeah, grant administration is not for the weak of heart.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we're constantly looking at ways that we can streamline the process and make things easier, you know, and more accurate.
Well, if there's nothing else, let's get to the best part of this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Wanda.
Intern introduction and
Thank you.
open space property. Thank you, Wanda.
Yep. have a good night.
WandaVision, that's a good show, too. Intern introduction, see that, you know. Intern introduction and open space properties project overview.
So we have Paige Myers with us this summer. Paige is here and she's going to introduce herself and talk about the project she's working on. I will say we are so excited that she is here. She has been doing a fantastic job so far. So I'm excited that she's going to present to you this evening.
Thank you. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Paige Myers, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight. So I'm Patton Township summer intern, and as Amy said, I'll be sharing a preview of my work on the open space, recreation, and engagement plan for our 3 township properties, Seward, Haw, and Grays Woods. Go ahead, Larry. Okay, so a little bit about me, who I am. I recently earned my bachelor's degree in health policy and administration from Penn State, and I am now pursuing my master's of public policy. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, about 30 minutes south of the city, and have a long-standing passion for community-driven work. My most impactful experience so far has been serving as the executive director for Penn State Homecoming in 2024, which definitely helped spark my interest in projects just like this, projects that really bring people together and create shared spaces with meaning. So next, for what I'm doing this summer, I'm developing a recreational and outreach plan for the township's 3 open space properties. My focus is on creating inclusive, low-impact recreation opportunities that preserve the natural environment while deepening the public's connection to these spaces. So next, for the goals that I've been following throughout this plan so far, one being providing safe and inclusive low-impact recreation, protecting and restoring the ecological integrity of each property, building a sense of public ownership and emotional connection, promoting place-based learning through education and research, and ensuring transparency and phased implementation guided by public feedback. So going a little bit deeper into each goal, goal number 1, recreation and access. Some ideas I've been exploring for recreational enhancements include expanding and clearly marking trails, enhancing the scenic overlooks with benches and other comfort measures, hosting community-oriented events, and designating quiet reflection areas. For goal number 2, environmental protection, first is the aim to install leave no trace signage following the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's set of outdoor ethics, create guided trail systems to prevent ecological damage, and explore habitat restoration, especially in sensitive areas across the properties. Next, for community engagement, this part has been especially exciting. I'd love to see trail naming contests with local elementary or middle schools, and adopt a trail program for scouts and families to hold light maintenance responsibilities, and community nature events in collaboration with local clubs or organizations. In addition, highlighting these activities on our social medias and the township website to further the public's awareness. I think these efforts could really help cultivate lifelong connections to the land. Goal number 4, educational use. I'm also exploring how these properties can serve as outdoor classrooms. That means QR code guided tours, support for Penn State class field trips, and encouraging and highlighting student and faculty-led research opportunities. I've begun utilizing my Penn State network to narrow down the programs offered and specific classes that already go on trips to places like this, with hopes of getting our properties implemented into their curriculum. And lastly, for goal number 5, transparency and assessment, my goal is to roll out improvements in alignment with the established property timelines, starting with trail signage and benches and scaling up to digital resources and research access. All materials will be centralized on the township website, and I'll be seeking feedback along the way. So this next slide is filled with my questions for you, but before we get there, I wanted to go a little bit deeper into what I've learned so far. Amy and I had breakfast with Bryce Boyer, and I gained invaluable insight into the history of Gray's Woods and Scotia Barrens, how the iron ore industry really shaped this region and why that legacy really matters. He even has a model of Old Scotia that could someday be displayed publicly. This history is something that we can integrate into interpretive signage and digital tours to really deepen the visitor experience. Next, I also met with Katie Umbalski from Woods and Waters, and she brought attention to sustainable design, interpretive signage lifespans, and connecting these properties to existing networks like the state game lands, as well as the cost and responsibility attached to any of these ideas to be put into practice. She stressed starting small, asking the public just 5 to 6 questions in an initial survey with room to grow the feedback later. So after that idea, I came up with 5 questions to include in an initial survey. So one being, have you heard of any of the following Patton Township open space properties? Have they ever visited them? What activities would you be most interested in doing at these properties? And which of the following would make you more likely to visit these properties, and would you be interested in helping shape the future of these spaces with future feedback opportunities? So all of these questions will have open-ended answers and fill in the blanks for people to share their own specific ideas in case they don't like what I have come up with or anyone else has either. So next steps, looking ahead, I plan to meet with Susan Wheeler next week to explore potential connections to the Township Parks program. I've also reached out to the Open Space Committee to introduce myself and let them know that I'm open to their ideas ahead of our July meeting, and their insights will be crucial as I work on this plan. So before I close, I'd love to hear your feedback. These 10 questions were just what had originally come to my mind, but if you have anything at all, I'd love to hear it.
So when I walked in and I
Supervisor
said,
Whitman?
based on the brief outline that we got in the agenda, I thought, I'm jotting down these ideas, and lo and behold, you pretty much addressed all of them in your output. I love the idea of the signage with the QR code. So signage was one of my first things. But there was a change in the habitat. We cut down a stand of trees at one point that were never intended to be there. They weren't native, but people were upset, right? You see trees being cut down. So we had two very successful plaques. And some people walked the woods and hadn't seen them, and I was able to say, go look for that plaque and read about it. That's very important. Let's see. Yeah, I love the idea of community events. And I think you mentioned this, or maybe not, you didn't use the word partnering exactly, specifically, but I think you mentioned a couple of organizations, reaching out to the elementary schools to adopt a trail. And of course, key to that, once you leave, right, is having a program in place that sort of runs itself, or as we're working with a partner, that partner will assume the responsibility without us having to pay them like we do with a consultant. And there are a number of organizations like reaching out to Clearwater Conservancy. They know about the property. They've done some walks on there looking for the vernal pools. You know, can we set up something with them regularly, and can we partner with them so that it's a Patton Township / Clearwater Conservancy event, which I think benefits everybody. So yeah, really great. I've also thought about a Friends of the Haw track. Of course, it doesn't address the other two properties, although the second one is kind of connected with it. But that's kind of down the road, and it's similar to what the Open Space Stewardship Committee is doing a little bit with the community gardens. So we've gotten almost like a Friends of the Gardens, self-sustaining or self-running. And I think the Friends of the Haw, that would be kind of cool. So I doubt we certainly wouldn't do that this summer, but a lot of the ideas that you're talking about would eventually build to something like the Friends of the Haw.
Yeah.
And that would be a funding as well as an organizing group, the board of directors, whatever. So it's exciting. So I love that property too, but I don't know nearly as much as Bryce and Katie do. So we met with two of the experts.
Supervisor Abrams.
I don't know if this will be of any use, but there are 5 Rotary clubs in Center County, and there are 3 in the Center region, and none of them are that large, but one meets near breakfast, another meets at lunch, and the other in the early evening. And they often invite people to talk about things happening in the community, and many people are interested in offering suggestions, and they don't come back later to bite you because they're moved on to other things.
A great idea. I always forget about Rotary.
Paige, thank you. This is wonderful. I think I've been a big proponent in inclusivity, and it seems like a lot of the stuff that you laid out really speaks to that. I specifically like the idea of, well, one, community activities. And I know this is something I talked to Amy about and wondering about in our sort of like locale. Are there spaces to bring residents together? And it seems like some of that is limited, but I think with this project and the goals that you have, that could be one way of fostering that community connection. But also think about inclusivity too, really being intentional about thinking about demographics as well. And so, again, I know we have a lot of things, just speaking to the center region for especially young kids, people with families and kids, obviously. But for me, I think starting here as a graduate student, understanding how transient this place is, I think being a young professional, it was like difficult to find that community connection. And I think, yeah, part of the goals could maybe capture those unique sort of like demographics that seem a little bit more transient. And we want them staying here too, in our region. And so I think, some intentional outreach and prioritizing them in these types of goals would be helpful, as well as, again, the quiet regions too. And so we know that we're trying to always find ways to improve the health and well-being of individuals. And so we know that outdoor nature helps to promote good, psychological well-being. But also with that, I think there's a lot of programs out there that, spaces have been adopting, but it's largely in very group format, settings. And we know there's a lot of people, social anxiety and other things, who would benefit from being outside but don't want to join those types of social spaces. And so designating the quiet areas for reflections. I think about international students or those who may have different religions, who would benefit from just quieter spaces for reflection and prayer and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm speaking to goal one, but that access, inclusivity, accessibility, I think there's a lot of good things that can happen there. And then, yeah, that's what I got. So, thank you.
So if you, looking at your educational opportunities, so if you want to put together a book walk, Park Forest Preschool is a good place to start, and I have things you want to do that. Because we have I work at WPSU, so we have a couple books that are already in posters. So.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Oh, Elliot.
There's always a challenge when you do questionnaires and try to get information. One example that isn't really true, but a lady walked into the doctor and said, "Doctor, I can only move my hand 3 inches." And the doctor said, "Let me see." And so she does this. And then the doctor said, "Well, what was it like before?" So the answers may not be consistent.
And I do know.
South of Pittsburgh, where's that, what you at?
Elizabeth, PA?
Elizabeth. I grew up in Carrick and worked through high school in Pleasant Hills on 51, by the mall, by the big mall. It doesn't exist anymore.
And I do know, working at Penn State, the counseling center out there, they do have the nature and nurture trails. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but I know we've partnered with them. I think Campus Health Promotion and Wellness and Campus Rec, I think they're the ones who facilitate that. But I think they have a nice program as well. As you talk about QR codes and other sort of things. I think they have a good model if we wanted to, seek out their input.
My email was on the last slide, so if anything sparks after the meeting, don't hesitate to reach out.
Sweet. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Public safety. I really got to go to the bathroom.
We can take a break so you can go.
All right, no. Public safety.
All right, thank you very much. A copy of my May 2025 report was included in the agenda materials. You'll see our officers stopped 170 vehicles. We wrote 25 tickets, 5 parking tickets. We handled 10 criminal arrests. Our bike patrol, in between raindrops, we're pretty busy. They rode 121 miles, did 136 business checks, 2 parking tickets, 9 incidents, and 2 vacation home checks. Under department notes, there was a 45-year-old female who was arrested for theft. She was an employee at a township business. It was found that she was not properly depositing the proceeds from the business sales. Our investigation revealed that there was a total of over $33,000 worth of missing deposits. So the officers did a really nice job on investigating that and making that arrest. A 39-year-old female was cited for cruelty to an animal. An officer was dispatched to a parking lot for a township business for a cat that was locked inside a car. The officer arrived and found the cat in distress, noting rapid respirations and his tongue was hanging out. The temperature outside was 75 degrees, but the officer found that the interior of the car was much warmer than that. And a witness advised that the cat had been left unattended in the vehicle for over 45 minutes. So I just want to pause quickly and just do a quick public service announcement here. So there was a study that was done that looked at a bunch of different outside air temperatures and then what the temperature would be inside a vehicle, even with the windows cracked. If the outside air temperature is 70 degrees, in 10 minutes, the interior of that vehicle will be 89 degrees. In a half hour, it's 104. I saw that this weekend, the temperatures are going to be up around 90 or above 90. So at that 90-degree mark, in 10 minutes, it's 109 inside that vehicle. In 30 minutes, 124. So just a really, really important reminder to do not leave your pets inside a vehicle unless the air conditioning's running and they have water, but even just having water at those temperatures in that quick of a time obviously could be very detrimental to their health and safety. So please, please, please do not do that. We're lucky in the center region. The residents are very diligent about that, and they will call the police, and we will come and address the situations, but just wanted to kind of make that awareness to the community. 19-year-old female was cited for harassment. She got into a verbal altercation with another woman, just kind of a random interaction. The other woman then exited a store, and that female punched her on the jaw with a closed fist, and our victim had to go to hospital for treatment. There were 6 arrests made for retail theft. Our officers served 2 warrants of the they attempted, and we conducted 13 vacation home checks. We did use force during 3 incidents in the month of May. Our officers were dispatched to assist the Pennsylvania State Police with a pursuit that was entering Patton Township on Buffalo Run Road. An officer was able to get ahead of the pursuit on Buffalo Run and successfully deployed our spike strips. He did strike the suspect vehicle's tires and flatten 2 of the tires. The officer then was able to collect our spike strips and continue on and catch up to the vehicle where it had stopped, and the trooper was there trying to take the individual into custody. They were not being cooperative. The trooper actually was holding the individual at gunpoint, giving them commands, and they were not listening to them and refusing to basically be handcuffed peacefully. So our officer arrived on scene, and after he realized what was going on, decided to use a less lethal option of a taser. The taser was very successful. The subject was taken into custody without any further incident. No injuries to anybody were reported at the scene. Our officers dispatched to assist Ferguson Township on a domestic dispute where there was possibly a gun involved with one of the males involved in the domestic. Our officer made contact with the suspect and another male in the parking lot and held them until a Ferguson officer was able to come and handcuff the individuals and pat them down safely to ascertain if there were weapons on the individual. And then lastly, an officer attempted to stop a vehicle on a traffic stop. The vehicle continued to disregard the officer's lights and sirens. Eventually, the officer was able to block the vehicle. The officer did draw their weapon and quickly determined that there wasn't a threat, so they holstered their weapon and assisted the driver out of the vehicle. There were no injuries reported in that, and traffic citations were issued to the driver by our officer. Under community relations, Sergeant Albright, Sergeant Schaefer participated in the annual torch run for Special Olympics. Sergeant Albright led the procession, and Sergeant Schaefer was a runner. Does the video work? You know, we don't have to do it right this second, but we can cue it up. So, okay. I have it here. Okay. Yeah, we have a video that Sergeant Schaefer actually was a part of, so we can show that here at the end. We are deeply honored to always be involved in the torch run. The athletes are such special individuals, and we really, really appreciate being a part of their journey and bringing the torch from Pittsburgh to here in State College for their games. It's just a fantastic experience that all the individuals, the officers who are involved in the torch run just have an absolute blast and really like it a lot. So we'll show you a video here when I'm done with my report that kind of highlights the torch run. Officer Tuskovich, Officer Kaufman, Officer Sunderland, and myself all worked at the annual Children's Safety Fair. We really lucked out and had great weather. It was kind of right in between rain, so it worked out great. Special thanks to Luana Moore for her assistance at our table. Fantastic event. Again, I wish we had a metric better to determine how many people came through. But their Home Depot was there in their craft this year. I believe it was like a sailboat, and they gave out 600. So we had at least 600 kids. So you add on at least a parent or two or some family members, we're guessing at least 1,000 people probably came through. So another fantastic event, well attended. And again, kudos to the Happy Valley Business Association. Matt Nabby is the president of that, for all the hard work they do kind of organizing the business side of it. And our police department and Brad Tuskovich organize kind of the first responders. We feel our side's really easy because we interact with those people all the time. So again, kudos to Happy Valley Business Association. Our officers provided presence and assisted with traffic control for a 5K run out at Circleville Park. Officer Tuskovich attended a job fair at C3 Sports. We did just do our written test last Saturday on June 7th. We had 42 applicants come. So we are now going to be interviewing the top 20 scores on June 30th and July 1st, right here in this room. So interview panel will be myself, Amy, Sergeant Shapanko, Detective Katie Slade, and then Terry Watson. So we have a very nice, diverse interview panel, and we actually were complimented on our interview panel by one of our applicants last year about just the diversity of the interview panel. Sergeant Schaefer gave a presentation about Camp Cadet. That's coming up. I don't believe they're accepting applications anymore. They're full, which is fantastic for both weeks, the boys and the girls week. So that's coming up here in August. But he and Detective Slade are very involved in Camp Cadet. And Officer Tuskovich provided a tour of our station. It was a reward for Park Forest Middle School students. I think they had like the option of getting an Amazon gift card or having lunch in a chill zone or things like that. And we had an officer who was very excited and picked that first, and we brought him here and showed him around. So he really enjoyed it. So department training activities. Our officers attended tactical response team training as they do each month. Detective Slade attended training on available FBI victim services unit. Detective Snyder and Detective Slade attended training on fraud, scams, and cryptocurrency investigations. Officer Kaufman and Officer Brooks attended a class on criminal interdiction, and Officer Tuskovich attended training to become an instructor of advanced law enforcement rapid response training. Officer Snyder and Graff completed their 2 required days of training. They also attended a community event at Mountain Indian Health in Tofttrees. Graff conducted a sniff of a vehicle that was involved in the pursuit, and he also assisted in a school search at CPI in Pleasant Gap. Besides attending the law enforcement memorial, which I didn't point out thoroughly, I read names there. Sergeant Schaefer was in charge of the rifle detail. Officer Brahowski was on the rifle detail, and Officer Finocchio was part of the vehicle procession that came in. So we had a very nice event for that. Center County always does a really nice job honoring the law enforcement officers and canines that lost their lives in the previous year. In the safety fair, though, I did attend a Big Brothers Big Sisters Advisory Council meeting, Center County, or Children's Advocacy Center board meeting, an event at Penn Highlands highlighting their sexual assault exam services, and then also the Center County Chiefs meeting. We have a photo then of our crew at the safety fair, I believe. Yeah, there it is. So unfortunately, really the biggest component of that missing is Officer Tuskovich, who really does all the organization, but he was off doing something else at the moment that the photo was taken. And obviously you see Miss Robb had come and visited our table while we were there. We have a performance report from Sergeant Shapanko to Officer Friend. This is in reference to the pursuit that I told you about. Sergeant Shapanko did a fantastic job outlining this. So he said Officer Friend responded to Buffalo Run Road to assist a PSP trooper who was pursuing a vehicle. The driver of the fleeing vehicle was later determined to have several active warrants and was also under the influence of alcohol. Officer Friend arrived in a timely manner and deployed spike strips in the area of Burnell Road. The fleeing vehicle hit the spike strips, which created a controlled tire deflation, eventually rendering the vehicle inoperable and forcing the driver to stop. When the vehicle stopped, the driver exited and confronted the trooper and refused to listen to verbal commands. Officer Friend arrived to assist the trooper and eventually had to deploy a taser to gain compliance with the driver. After the taser deployment, the driver was taken into custody without further incident. It was due to the quick actions of Officer Friend that an individual who created a dangerous situation on the roadway and had active warrants was swiftly taken into custody with no injury to the individual, officers, or any innocent person or property. His actions reflect the highest credit on himself and on the Patton Township Police Department. He did a really nice job. And then we actually received a letter from the station commander, Lieutenant Jones, from the Pennsylvania State Police, thanking our officers for their assistance with the pursuit by deploying the spike strips and the taser, thanking us again for helping us bring it to a much quicker and safer resolution. Lastly, I have my record calls for service for the month. In the month of May, we handled 531 calls. That's down from the 577 that we handled in April. 119 of those were school checks, 62 were traffic incidents, and 60 were health and safety, EMS assists. Of those 62 calls, again, there was a lot that were storm related, so a lot of those were trees down blocking roadways and things like that. So that is the reason why that number is a little bit high. And if Larry has it queued up, we can do that video real quick from the torch run.
We'll see if I can get it there. Media player, let's share that. Huh? Is that what it said? All right, well, maybe what we can do.
I love technology.
If it doesn't play, it was a really, really great tribute to, again, the officers who literally run the torch from Pittsburgh to State College. And again, kudos to the motorcycle unit from Pittsburgh. The motorcycles kind of leapfrog and block off the intersections to continue the run through. Sergeant Schaefer ran what I would probably consider one of the most difficult legs, which is Skytop Mountain. It's a very trying leg. Not many volunteers for that particular stretch of roadway, but he and another member from the tactical response team did it and did a fantastic job. So he was actually interviewed in the video, and so I really was hoping we'd be able to watch it, but if, maybe here.
Can we post it on our website?
We can. There we go. Yep,
That'd be fun. Oh, wait.
we got it.
I don't know if we'll have any volume.
No audio.
How come I can't see them on screen? Huh.
When you clicked share, did you check the box to share audio as well?
What's that?
When you, typically when you click share screen, there should be a dialog box that says share audio as well. I don't know if you checked that. So if you unshare, unscreen share.
Is there audio?
Do you want me to start it over again? Okay.
Is there audio with it?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, click out of the screen share and
Okay.
then,
I'm not in screen share,
Oh.
when I was trying to share it in Zoom,
Who owns the video?
Oh, I don't know.
So I think it came from an agency out in Pittsburgh, I believe.
Because we're doing a documentary on Special Olympics.
Okay. Sergeant Hendrick from Ferguson Township is really our law enforcement liaison for Center County, so he'd probably be Sergeant Ryan Hendrick. Yeah, he'd be probably your best contact.
Is that you could, that would be a good thing to have in there.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
okay.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's fine. Yeah, if we can maybe link to it or, I don't know,
It's inspirational.
that'd be helpful. Definitely email it to us though. Thanks, Chief, for that report. I'll say that something was pretty jarring to me, which you may be able to give some insight into. So you said our officer went and helped and saw that the state trooper had the individual at gunpoint, but our person decided to use a less lethal means and got the job done.
Yes.
I know we all weren't there, and I guess there's a wondering of why our officer decided for the less lethal means. Was it just an assessment of the situation? It felt like that was appropriate.
Yeah, so again, I wasn't there. You know, but I think that the trooper being there by himself and pursuing this individual for many, many miles for about 10 minutes or so, having his duty weapon out was an appropriate response, because especially the one thing that really wasn't conveyed well maybe was the individual got out and came to and like kind of rushed at the trooper. So as he was trying to create space, he drew his weapon and tried to start giving him commands. So when our officer got there, it was kind of this stalemate, that this individual was not listening to what the trooper was telling him to, show me your hands, get on the ground, stop moving, don't stop coming towards me, things like that. Because I think he was still trying to kind of backpedal and make space between them, so that, that he didn't have to use his weapon. But when our officer got there, we would never, there was really no point in him pulling a lethal option at that point. He didn't need to pull his weapon. So when you have lethal cover, because we don't know what's going on with that individual at this point, maybe he does have a gun in his waistband, in his pocket, whatever the case may be, it's good to have lethal cover while you're deploying a less lethal device, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that was his rationale, is that the lethal cover was available. He thought that the taser would hopefully be effective in bringing that person under control, which was obviously the ultimate goal, was to just get him into handcuffs to be able to pat him down and find out why he was resisting the commands that the officer or the trooper was giving him. So split-second decision-making, he made really good decisions. He's also one of our newest officer.
Yeah.
So I was really happy that he made the decisions he made with the amount of experience he has.
Yeah, and I'm impressed too. So with that decision, and obviously the less lethal means is preferable, and it's helpful to understand the other context with the state trooper and the conditions he was under. But yeah, that's helpful.
He did a great job. He did, yeah.
So I wanted to add a couple things. So
Supervisor Whitman.
just a response to your response. A couple of years ago, I'm trying to think what summer it was, we had Ben Jones from the Rock Ethics Institute in Penn State help us look at police procedures and talk about the use of violence, the use of force. And we actually had an officer come in, I think, and gave us an overview of different weapons that were used. So it was a really a sort of training overview for all of us on the board that Ben Jones put together and orchestrated with the chief and officers. And that resulted in the chief's inclusion of, I believe this was the seminal point, the inclusion of use of force in all of the reports. So every time he gives us a monthly report, he will, call out specifically that no use of force this month, or here's when we did have use of force. Not that it changed the use of force, I don't recall, but I think there was a mindset that I'm really proud that Patton has adopted and sets a tone of.
Yeah, certainly transparency, right? So, we wanted to be sure that if our officers are using force, then we consider a use of force anything above compliant handcuffing. So, obviously that's a multitude of things. That can mean very many things. That's why, I include these in the reports. But for transparency was the biggest thing. We did make a few tweaks to our deadly force policy as a result of those conversations as well. So, generally, we're guided by the law. Section 508 of the Crimes Code is what gives us the justification to use deadly force. So that obviously is a big component of our policy. However, there were a few tweaks made from those conversations.
Yeah, it was really very a satisfying process, very educational, as well as reassuring, not just for our particular police, but the fact that there's a larger statewide or national organization of police that go out across the country and do training. And Ben Jones had introduced us to some of the training manuals from that, and for example, that there had been training on use and comparing statistics of use of force and kind of force in the U.S. versus England, where they don't carry guns, they carry the bobby sticks and specific ways to be effective without a use of force. But it was really a really laudable process. And Amy wasn't here. It was Doug here.
Yeah, I think
It was great.
the police culture in general has really changed over the last 5 years or so.
Yes.
To de-escalation is,
Thank you for that.
currently,
That's-
that's generally every use of force report that we get, de-escalation tactics are part of that.
Yeah.
So we track those as well, and that's usually in my end of my year report. I go through and say, hey, here's how many use of forces we had, these are the types we had, these are the de-escalation tactics that we tried and we used. Those generally start with verbal, right? I mean, if we can get somebody to comply with us verbally, that's the greatest thing we can do. But they include, time, making distance, sometimes totally disengaging in the situation. If it's something we don't need to deal with right that moment, let's just get ourselves out of it because it looks like it's heading towards the fact where we might have to use, some type of force. So again, verbal de-escalation is what we strive for. Yeah.
And really kudos to you for establishing that culture. I put a lot of that result on you. I think really an admirable job. So really good to see that. So and if you had spare time, wanted to look at some of those trainings, they really were very impressive. I was like, wow, no idea. So the other thing and I apologize, this might take a little minute, but I too was worried about just this use of drew the weapon, I forget, and then it was also one other point or another incident. So I'm just thinking about, so I was a psychology student also years ago, and there was a social psychology study that I read. The study was done in 1963, so it was an old study, but it was still reputable when I read it. And it occurred in the fall of '63, and it had to do with what factors would determine whether a person walking in the street seeing a wallet on the ground, what would determine or influence whether that person would turn it in. Did it have anything to do with the identification in it, the amount of money in it, and so on. And so they got into a pattern of, say, maybe 20% of the wallets every day were returned, and so percentage more if it had a lot of money or if it didn't have money, and so on. And one day, then after they're finished this study over several months, they looked back at the data and they noticed that one day none of the wallets were returned. None of them, and nobody could figure out what it was. And they look at the date, it was November 22nd, 1963. And if you lived through that, that was the day that Kennedy was shot. Well, people looking back at the data didn't maybe jump out at them at the time. So I give this example, and I'm sure there are others, and I'm sure many things like this happened with 9/11. People's behavior is very much impacted by what happens in the news. And we certainly have had it was a very upsetting weekend with the violence that occurred in Minnesota, which happens to be where my daughter lives. But it was just horrific for all of us to hear that. And so on. So I'm stating the obvious maybe. We're all experiencing this, but I'm just kind of thinking outside the box and wondering if there are ever times when you notice, because of something that's going on nationally, or if one day incident, or maybe over months or a year, a change in people's behavior. So I think is just something that we're all very sensitized to, especially after this weekend. So, just food for thought. And thank you as always. It's what our services are for. That's it.
Nothing else?
Sorry I couldn't get the video play. It's really a good video, so.
That's all right.
I've seen it.
Yeah, email it to us. Yeah.
See what we can do. Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Letter of support for Safe Streets and Roads for All grant.
So the police department is putting together a grant funding to purchase Flock Safety ALPR cameras and traffic analytics package. So Safe Routes and Streets for All is a grant initiative that came from the bipartisan infrastructure law, and it's aimed at reducing roadway fatalities and serious injuries. It's administered by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and there's $5 million allocated to support local, regional, and tribal efforts. So the reason that we're going for these cameras is to address safety concerns of the rise in incidents involving vehicle-based crimes and hit and runs, and to preserve public safety through prevention, deterrence, and rapid response. The cameras will make a safety impact in our community, and Officer Friend is actually the one who's working on this grant program for us. So, and I don't know much about these grants, but Chief can also answer questions about that because that is not my bailiwick. I will say the total cost of the program, what we had in the agenda is actually not true. We're gonna apply for 5 years, so it's $100,750 with an 80% funding and then 20% match, but the match can be done through working hours, so in kind. So that's what we're gonna go for, is the 20% match through working hours. So if you're inclined, we'd like to submit a letter of support with the grant. Officer Friend has been working pretty hard on this for a while. He's been working with the Center Region MPO, Center County MPO as well on this. So we had a draft of the letter included with your agenda packet.
Yeah, we also received letters from Alpha Fire, from Center County, MPO, and so Pam Adams, Ben Estelle, and Sean Kaufman all also wrote letters to support this project.
We sure the government isn't going to reclaim this monies too? I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Good.
Looks good.
Wait, where are these cameras going to go?
Yeah,
So we're looking at the busy intersections, obviously North Atherton Street. So North Atherton, Valley Vista, North Atherton at Colonnade Boulevard, and then North Atherton at Viro, as well as Waddle at Colonnade as well. So the busy, pretty much the busy corridor of North Atherton Street on the business Atherton.
Do you know if other municipalities have this?
Yes, so Penn State University, their police department has just worked with Flock and are putting cameras in on campus currently as we speak. In fact, their project, I think, has already gone live. The State College Borough just put cameras in. I'm not sure what company. Don't know that for sure that it was Flock, but they have cameras at Atherton and College and the other end of I'm sorry, Atherton College and the other end of Beaver, I believe, too. So both ends of College and Beaver, yeah.
Because Atherton and Blue Course is also kind of a nasty intersection with all those lanes and turning, and I've heard of a couple of accidents there. I'm sure they occur other ones.
Yeah, that's the benefit of these is
But that's
they do record. So if we do have crashes, serious crash, we'll have it recorded as well at those locations.
Yeah, but that's Ferguson, I think.
But Blue Course was Forest, yeah, but we do get a fair amount of crashes at the three
Yeah,
intersections.
which is good,
so,
yeah,
yep.
totally. Yeah, I think it's good.
Supporting timely investigations into hit and runs, auto thefts, and other crimes involving vehicles. I mean, would this technology be used for other investigations that doesn't revolve around
Yeah,
vehicles?
so this is similar, this would be similar technology to what we have on one of the vehicles already. So we do have an ALPR reader on car 3. So that certainly can support, if we have a very serious crime, we can put a license plate into the system and it would hit and tell us, if that car ever came down North Atherton Street, the date, the time, the location. If it's the current, then it would tell us, hey, that vehicle's on North Atherton Street right now. So anywhere from a homicide suspect to a child abduction to, a missing elderly person, you name it, they could be used for these, yeah. So all sorts of different investigations could be impacted by this.
That's not just involving vehicles.
Anything involving, anything that's registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles, yes.
So I mean, if like there was some destruction of a business, would they be asking for footage from us?
So again, depending, I mean, if we have a description of a vehicle, we might be able to pull that footage from that vehicle going past these cameras, certainly. Like I said, it's going to be recorded. If there's, I don't know how wide the angle of the camera will be, so if it's, at Atherton, coming in off of 99 out here, as you're approaching Valley Vista, it would be on the pole that has the signs for which lanes, the direction of the lanes. It might catch a portion of Sheetz, for instance, so that maybe we could see if there, if there was something happening in the Sheetz parking lot, we might have it recorded there. But certainly, any vehicle that goes past there, we'd be able to pull that footage and hopefully be able to use something from it.
Upkeep, so you said we have one of these cameras already. I'm wondering just about upkeep of like the technology, software, like what is that called, protection of that particular data? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we pay a fee, I believe, for our current system. It's around $600 a year for the software, for the storage of the data, data protection. The hardware, it was a one and done. We bought the hardware, put it on the vehicle, and haven't had any kind of upkeep or maintenance with it. We have a 5-year agreement with the current system that we have. But these systems have millions of license plates in them. So it's potential we could go live and, maybe even put a plate in, again, from a crime that we had from 5 years ago, put it into the system, and it would tell us where that vehicle was at from then till now. So it's very, very robust, very powerful tool.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Sign the letter, Sutan.
We'll see. I need to read the fine print. No. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Third.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? What did you?
Well, you asked us to raise our hands, or you're looking for, what are you looking for?
And I agree, okay. A unanimous,
Yes, 4-0.
a unanimous decision. Okay, moving on, Public Works, North Oak Lane Stormwater Improvement Project.
So we solicited bids for the North Oak Lane Stormwater Improvements Project, which includes replacement of inlets and stormwater piping along North Oak Lane between Douglas Drive and Westgate Drive. One bid was received from Gleno Hawbaker Incorporated, and the bid included various options for construction methods and scope of work. Our consulting engineer, who's on Zoom if you have questions, recommends the award of the bid to Gleno Hawbaker for the bid option 1, which consists of cast-in-place replacement of existing inlets in the amount of $94,750. We actually are doing paving along that street, and we're also going to do some additional pipe work using a wire later in the fall. So it's a kind of a complicated project, but we also do have some grant funding, and I know Michelle went through the funding side of things in the memo that was in your packet. We do have funding from the county to do stormwater work, and we also have funding from the state of Pennsylvania for some of the paving, and we had money in the budget for this project as well.
I'll entertain a motion before any comments or discussions. Any second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion?
Sounds good.
All right. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Planning and Zoning, Planning Commission report. They
They did not meet in June, they'll meet in July. They're going to start talking about attainable housing in July, kind of a timeline and a framework to move forward.
got it. Thank you.
I was just about to ask, when are we going to talk about the plastics? And then I literally looked down, single-use plastics.
It's right here. Okay, so we have been talking about single-use plastics and some form of regulation for a while now. I think that started in 2022. We actually have a working group which is comprised of representatives from State College, College Ferguson, and myself from Patton. We have been researching similar regulations across Pennsylvania. We actually reached out and conducted interviews with representatives from 16 various communities, most of them in the southeastern part of the state, about their experiences with plastics. And then we sat down with municipal managers, I should say I sat down with the municipal managers, and worked out a series of recommendations for further discussion with our boards, and then also we would like to then start putting together more of a draft ordinance and going out and doing some public engagement. So I'm going to run through kind of what we're recommending. We're recommending that we start by regulating just single-use plastics. We had talked about straws, but that's probably a little bit more cumbersome, and we thought let's just start with the kind of low-hanging fruit. Fee structure and distribution. After talking with a lot of the different municipalities in the state, we really are recommending that the ordinance language be written to give businesses the option to collect a fee, and we would set a maximum amount of what that fee could be. And we talked about, since places like Aldi, Wegmans, and some other places in town are already charging a per bag fee, we would set the maximum at what the maximum is already being charged. And then the businesses would be able to retain the fee. We don't want a bag tax that comes back to us. We want the businesses to be able to use that as they see fit. I know Wegmans donates some of the money that they get. I think some of the others use it to buy paper bag stock, which is all totally fine. We're recommending an implementation timeline be set sort of after the engagement piece. And for the engagement piece, we're talking a lot about the business community, and in particular the small businesses, particularly the ones in downtown State College, and talking with them, because we don't want to create a hardship for them, and we have a vast variety of timelines from other places across the state in terms of implementation. Some want 6 months, some want a year, some want a little bit longer. Enforcement, we don't want this to be the heavy hand of government, right? We're not the government, we're here to help. We would like to have this enforced more on a complaint basis with existing staff. Westchester, I believe, Westchester Borough uses actually their Environmental Advisory Council, so a group of volunteers that help them enforce this. And the focus here would be less on imposing fines and more on a positive interaction with the business to explain why we're doing what we're doing and try to get compliance in that direction. We're recommending that we target the first quarter of 2026 for ordinance adoption, and then sort of working backward, we want to put together public listening sessions and engagement with, again, the local business community and also our residents in late summer. We're talking about waiting until the students come back to do some of that engagement, taking advantage of some of the events. And then also, when we go out and do these public listening sessions, giving residents and the business community an opportunity to give us suggested revisions, so that the ordinance itself isn't necessarily set in stone, that you could come back and say, hey, we really think you should try it this way, and then we can have a conversation about that. I should say, too, that we did invite the manager from Harris Township into our working meeting, and the Harris Township Board has not indicated their interest in moving forward with this, so it would just be the big four is what they call us sometimes. So it would just be the rest of us in the center region. So I put a copy of the recommendations in the agenda packet. If you have any feedback, that would be helpful. The managers have a meeting scheduled again on July 9th to talk about feedback that we received with our boards, and then to continue moving on with the project.
So you want it to be effective and not break the camel's back.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, bravo. All the work.
Because that'd be the last straw.
Any comments so far? Okay.
Comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're able to forecast, well, I'm gonna state now, there's gonna be a lot of persuading needing to happen with our local community, with our business, well, some with our businesses. And I'll say myself too, like I think I've articulated this in the past, that I don't, in looking at the research on single-use plastics compared to
brown paper bags, also understanding that level of impact, that's not actually helpful for the environment. I'm very reluctant or skeptical right now about moving forward with this adoption. And so, again, I'm keeping an open mind, and I'm going to continue to do my research. And I want to make it clear this is not a foregone conclusion, at least with me, that I would be in favor of.
So one of the things I just want to say, and I apologize in advance because trash is sort of my thing. I participated in 2 statewide waste composition studies, first in 2001 and then again in 2021, maybe 2022. And single-use plastics is the #1 thing that is in our waste stream, plastics in general, but single-use plastics. And, when we're sitting and we were, sorting garbage into 6 or 7 different categories, you're flinging bags at people's heads full of things. So I think if there's a way that we can help reduce that in the waste stream, that's important on a couple of different fronts. Certainly understand that people have concerns. I've heard from some folks already, some friends of mine that aren't necessarily sold on this as well. So we'll continue to take that into consideration as we move forward with this. What I heard from actually one of my friends said, I don't mind Wegmans or Aldi's doing it because it's really a business decision for them. But this feels like something that we're pushing because of the environment, and I'm not sold on that yet. So point well taken as we move forward and discuss things.
You had some reservations about paper, you said, from what you've read, that it doesn't necessarily, that it also comes with environmental issues, perhaps?
I mean, yes, the paper also comes with environmental issues, but I think the biggest part is just the mandate from local government on how businesses should operate sort of like in this domain. With again, understanding like what's the cost, right? And so I understand the impact on the environment, and I think about what dent is this going to make in the grand scheme of things. And I know I don't want to say that because I know that seeks to undermine efforts with sustainability. But I just mean that as like I'm weighing that, how much of an impact it has just for sustainability efforts in our environment versus the government, local government being seen dictating what types of products, businesses need to offer, but also with consumers, and I think I stated this a few years ago when this first started coming up, like consumers, again, people who are carrying those bags as well, it's going to be an impact on them. And I know some individuals that talked about, well, get the totes that's recyclable, reusable, and I understand all of that. And we talked about people coming into the community for sporting events and stuff like that. And so it's not as feasible to just have everybody, have, reusable bags. And so, for me, it's just, it doesn't feel like a simple fix. And I'm really wary, again, about us trying to regulate something while also hearing at the same time, we'll try to take a flexible approach to sort of like enforcement, which I agree with. And for something like this, and I think I've articulated this a few times again, if we're not going to like have teeth to something, then why even do it? And so, again, I imagine I'm in the minority in some of this, but just wanted to make it clear.
Thanks, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
There are many examples of communities where it's been very successfully adopted, and I experienced one. My mother lives up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which of course is a maritime community pretty much. And they've had paper bags only for a number of years, I would say 5 or 6 years. It was certainly before COVID, if I remember correctly. I'm just trying to put everything. And so I would talk to people at the stores, of course, and everybody was like, of course it's what, we don't want plastic in our water. So in that community, I think there was pretty quick buy-in, but they're also surrounded by aquatic environments, which has a lot of damage from phosphates, whatever. So yeah. But it'll be interesting to follow. Yeah.
And one of the discussion pieces we had to your comment about the special events and things was about special events. So I was in Lake George back in 2023, and they have a single-use plastic ban, but they had outlets. And at the outlets, we got plastic bags. They didn't even ask. They just gave it to us because of very transient population coming in. So we've talked about Arts Fest, football games, some of the other things that happen in town, and that maybe those things we don't say, because you're not going into Beaver Stadium carrying a reusable bag to put your Penn State t-shirt in that you're buying, right? And if you're going to Arts Fest, you're not carrying your tote bag to buy the finds that you're bringing home from Arts Fest. So we talked about maybe we would exempt those special events, because also those are, in the case of Arts Fest, those are artists and other vendors that are coming in from outside of the area and wouldn't necessarily know what we're doing and maybe not have the paper bags in stock and things.
And I know, this will be researched and community input. I'm wondering, like, has there been like a, I don't know if there's like a national effort or award or rating for like, the elimination of, single-use plastics and adoptions of like more sustainable baggage. And yeah, just wonder if there's been something like that where we're talking with our community and saying we want to be part of this ranking of municipalities who have converted to this. And then we're engaging with our business leaders to say, hey, as a community, we're wanting to be on this ranking list to try to get some type of more voluntary thing before actually adopting and seeing, how well that effort goes prior to like actually writing something in our.
So I would say two things. Number one, and it's one thing that you're going to discuss next on your agenda. So we're a gold certified sustainable Pennsylvania community, and we're recertifying. So I think doing something like this might help us jump from gold to platinum status, which is important in that, the DCED now recognizes that on grant applications and other things. And that's a lot of buy-in, from your community towards sustainability. Number two, I heard, and I don't know if it's been introduced yet, that there is going to be a bill introduced at the state level to ban single-use plastic bags. And what's interesting about that, at least to me, because I'm a policy geek, I guess, is that when this discussion all first started many years ago, we had a different state senator at the time, and that state senator and a few other people passed a ban on these kind of single-use plastic bag bans for a period of like 3 years, and then that sunsetted, and they decided it was okay to move forward. And that's why you're seeing communities, again, it's primarily Pittsburgh area, Philadelphia area, and a pocket around the Harrisburg area. That's why you're seeing these popping up now. But I thought it was interesting that the bill may go nowhere, but I thought it was interesting that at least someone at the state was thinking, maybe we need to move this forward at a statewide level rather than, because again, we talked in the center region at least, because nobody really knows where they are in the center region, they're just in state college. And we talked about how it would be nice if we all did the same thing and if it was cohesive. I think there's varying opinions across some of the boards as to what to do, when to do, how to do, what to not do. So I think it's going to be interesting to try to get to some consensus. And I know there's concern about this impact on the business community. Again, the larger businesses, the chains, the Targets, the Walmarts, they just do whatever they have to do within the area that they're in. But the smaller businesses, I think this is more of a concern. So we want to make sure that we're being, respectful when we move forward and getting enough feedback on that as well.
For sure.
New York's done it since 2020.
Yeah.
Colorado, no bags.
Yeah. Joan Bouchard has a comment. She's online. Go ahead, Joan.
Well, prior to Joan, thanks, Joan.
Okay, may I speak now?
Just a second, Joan.
Oh, of course.
If you don't mind. No, I just want to make it clear. I agree with the efforts. I want something needs done. I'm just somewhat reluctant to go heavy-handed. That's all I'm articulating. So, Joan, please, the floor is yours.
You're trying to be careful.
Yeah.
But what I would like to say is that there are 19 states in the United States that have totally banned plastic bags. California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. So there is a feeling in the country that plastic is a big problem, and it's enough of a problem so that even at the statewide level, they have banned them. So I am glad we're giving this serious consideration. This has been under consideration here since Pam Steckler first brought this up, and that was before I even came here in the summer of 2017. So it's probably like 10 years that we've been figuring out what to do. And there are many, many townships in this state that already have banned plastic bags. I don't know which ones they are because I haven't had a chance to research this, but there is very widespread feeling in the country that plastic bags are a big problem and that we should do away with them for environmental reasons and also for reasons of the creatures that live in the watercourses that are being fouled, and also for what's happening in the oceans, because the oceans are so full of plastic that the birds and the fish and the seals and so forth eat them. They think that they're jellyfish and they eat them. So this is a really big problem all over in our country. And so I think we ought to give this really serious consideration. So I'm glad that we are discussing this. And that's all. And thank you for letting me speak and for listening.
Thank you, Joan.
And thank you for your service to Patton Township, of course.
Thank you, Joan. Supervisor Abrams.
I'm glad that Joan talked about this because at the Village of Penn State, there's actually a recycling committee. Jim Tate is in charge of it, and he actually gives a little talk about the latest in recycling at monthly meetings for the group. And older people sometimes are thought of as being resistant to change, but that's just because they're stubborn. But no, but if somebody knows that there's a good thing to do, they're going to do it, and that's what, and I think it's very effective.
Yeah. Maybe one last thing.
Supervisor Whitman?
Yeah, so I think it's also largely a cultural thing. For anybody who's spent time in Europe, but had the luck of doing one summer in England, they don't have bags. They just don't have them. Plastic, paper, nothing. You carry your own bag. I mean, you just do. So if you go to a football game and they're giving out T-shirts, you put it in your backpack, or you carry your bag because you know they're not going to have bags. It's just part of what they don't do or do. Anyway, so. And when plastic bags were first introduced, people drove station wagons and pickup trucks. They didn't like the plastic because they liked the paper because it would line up neatly in the back of their station wagon or the truck. The plastic bags didn't do that at all. So anyway, thank you for all your work on that. Appreciate it.
So what you're advocating for is just no bags.
No, I'm not saying
Let's just go the whole way.
advocating no bags. I'm just saying it's about culture. I reusable bags. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And but I've trained myself to do that, and it's hard. I mean, but
Okay.
that's my geeky thing.
All right. Is there something more sustainable than paper bags? I mean, obviously reusable, but
A backpack, but even a lot of reusable bags are made out of plastic. So
yeah.
anyway, whatever.
So it's plastic, paper, and then reusable.
Yeah, microplastics are getting to be a big thing too.
Yeah.
People are recognizing that, all kinds of plastic,
Okay.
health issues.
All right.
My hand's up again.
Oh, Joan has something else to say.
Oh, Joan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, first of all, at the Village at Penn State, all plastic bags get collected and recycled back at Walmart. We take recycling very seriously here, and I'm the recycling buddy. I go and visit the new people that come in and explain to them about all the things that recycle, such as even alkaline and all other kinds of batteries and cereal boxes to be made into earrings at Jabibo and all kinds of things. And people are, once they know, that these recycling opportunities are available, they're very enthusiastic about it. And I also wanted to say that over at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church, we bring those plastic bags so that people can reuse them. But every time that people find reusable bags, we bring them over there. And the traffic in these reusable bags that we give away for free is really, really heavy. They're all gone within a matter of a couple of minutes. So reusable bags, and Michaela Amato has been doing a lot of work with her artist colleagues in making reusable bags out of T-shirts and all kinds of things. Even using reusable bags can be something that's art and something that's actually easier because they're easier to carry than plastic bags. And also the plastic bags break, and sometimes they have to put two because, you have 2 bottles of soda and one bag won't take 2 bottles of soda. So we could get rid of a lot of problems if we got rid of plastic bags. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak again.
Always, Joan. We appreciate your contributions. All right, moving on. Resolution 2025-09, reaffirming the township's commitment to the Sustainable Pennsylvania Community Certification Program.
So as I mentioned, the township is a gold certified Sustainable Pennsylvania Community. We achieved that designation in 2019. Technically, that expired at the end of 2023, so I'm working with the staff's help, working my way through the recertification process. I think I'm halfway done. So I need you guys to pass a resolution just reaffirming our commitment to the program. We passed this resolution originally back in 2017 or 18 when we did this application.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Oh,
Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Anything need changed? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Manager's report.
Okay, I just want to highlight a couple of things. I know the hour is getting long. First, we tracked our expenses from the April 29th derecho storm that we had. To date, we've spent $35,995 in storm cleanup. That's been split between, majority of it's trees, but it's also been split with some traffic signal expenses. So as we move forward, one of the things we're doing is we're going to look at putting money in the budget every year now to address tree concerns. We do have 2 members of the road crew that are going to be going to take a tree class, tree pruning, and then we also have an offer to learn about hazardous tree identification from Penn State Forester. So that will be helpful. And we've also are making some upgrades to the traffic signals. We're doing about $9,000 worth of work this summer to add battery backups. So we have surge protectors and other things in place. And then we'll do additional traffic signals next year. Next thing is that we did have 32 applications for our assistant manager for public works position. We interviewed 5 outstanding candidates this morning. I want to thank Larry and Susan Wheeler who helped me with that. And we have 2 candidates that will come back July 2nd and 3rd for a final round of interviews and get to meet the staff before I make a final decision on who we want to bring in. But we had a stellar bunch of people that interviewed, so I was really proud or pleased with the applications that we got. And then lastly, the solar power purchasing agreement, I included an update in the manager's report, just a note that the project has actually been moved to Sligo Township, Clarion County, and I believe it's going through its approval processes there, and it might have actually gotten all of its approval. But all of the entities have actually signed on to the document now. So the documents are all executed by everybody. So hopefully that project will move forward.
and yeah, construction start is still slated for, hoping to begin the 30th of this month. Is that, construction, no, there's contracts.
Contracts.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that, yeah. never mind.
Thanks, Amy. Are we slated to interface with the finalists?
I do not have that factored into the process. I can certainly do that if you want.
What is the board's,
I didn't hear what,
if the Board of Supervisors are going to meet with the finalists for this position?
sure, why not? That's a good idea.
So we're doing it July 2nd and 3rd, starting at 8 a.m. They're meeting the road crew at 8, the Public Works Department at 8:30, and then they were gonna meet with Larry, Tyler, and I at 9. So we could bump Larry, Tyler, and I back if as many members, I can't have all of you, but if a couple of you wanna stop in at 9 o'clock to meet the candidates both days.
I'll be out of town.
Supervisor Whitman?
Yeah, it sounds, I've got it now, I'm writing it down. I think I can do that. When do you want, I'll just let you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's the 2nd and the 3rd at 9 a.m. and it would be here.
Yeah. So are you going to try and do it, Sutan or Elliot?
Yeah,
or-
I'll try. Yeah.
And what we're doing with the members of the road crew and the members of the Public Works Department is I'm having each person ask one question. Like, I want to do a meet and greet so they can meet the candidates, but they're each asking one question. And I'm having them submit the questions, so I don't make sure we don't have redundant questions, but we'll have a list of those questions compiled. And they have to ask the same question to each candidate. And then I'm going to send a survey to the members of both departments to have them give me their feedback on the person.
And so this potential 9 o'clock would be what again?
We could do the same thing that we're doing with everybody else. We could have a meet and greet so that you can meet the candidates, and then you can also ask them, or you guys probably like ask more than one question, but you can ask them a question or two, and then provide me feedback afterwards as to what you think about the candidates.
Okay, so how about we get on an email chain, and for those who are able and wanting to attend, we can confirm that, just to make sure we have some numbers, some representation there from the board.
Yeah, I'm clear those both days.
I'm sorry, this was the 2nd and the 3rd? Or
Yes.
3rd's my birthday.
I mean, I might buy you a birthday treat.
I'm running a seminar at 9 o'clock though,
Would you have a favorite cake?
so I wouldn't be able to come to 3rd. Okay, so yeah, email, let's confirm
Yep,
over email.
I'll do that before I leave the office today.
Yeah, how wide a geographic field did you draw upon?
We had people from Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico who applied. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on in Texas, but we got a lot of people from Texas. And they had experience, they weren't just like random people.
Climate change.
I can
They
tell you
wanted to
what's
get out
up
hot weather,
in
maybe. I don't
Texas.
know.
Maybe they heard Pennsylvania is where it's at for local government.
It's probably that too.
Goodness.
Elliot has a question.
Supervisor
I
Abrams.
just realized that from July 1st through 11th, I won't be in town, so I won't be able to participate.
Okay. Okay. We'll get those confirmations. Committee reports. Sorry, did anyone have anything else for Amy? All right, committee reports. Anything people want to talk about?
I was going to, of course, say something about solar power. Amy's already said it. The Climate Action Sustainability Committee actually didn't meet, and we haven't been really addressing the power purchase agreement because it's been out of our committee, but we've, of course, all been following it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's very exciting to be where we're at. Going to, save us money, save us carbon, our carbon output, and good things.
Human Resources we met and then we didn't meet because we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah.
And then Executive Committee, I appreciate Supervisor Whitman attending with me because I had to leave out early. I guess I'm unsure if how much we should talk about.
Well, it's all public. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I guess it is public.
Yeah, but we based, the gist of it was comments that elected officials were making, which is their constitutional right to make. And since they're making them outside of the meeting, there's not really anything that any official action that we can take. But concern about how we go about handling misstatements that are made to counter that misinformation, and still do it within the letter of the law, the U.S. Constitution. I did ask about coming up with a similar sort of protocol, that resolution similar to what we did for the COG meeting we had, that about 5 years ago or so. But that was different than what we're dealing with now, which is out in the public sphere. For the meeting, it's within a meeting place, and it's well within the Constitution to set certain expectations for a meeting, such as the amount of time that people can speak, or you know, the courtesy that is being shown. And we don't say we have to do that, but we're recommending it. So it's a little less tractable when it's out in the public sphere. So, but it is being addressed. It will be addressed, considered, and talked about at some point in a COG general forum meeting with everybody here.
Yeah, and I think going beyond just correcting or misstatements that elected officials make, but also casting aspersions or denigrating, I'm using these big words, sorry, talking about staff. I think that in a unhelpful or negative way, that was also discussed. And yeah, which has just been an issue. And so, again, trying to find how we can have remedies for this unhelpful, I should say, conduct from elected officials will be an ongoing discussion, but it seems like a major barrier is not infringing on the speech of elected officials, you know, that we have. However, there are limits to that.
Well, and there are legal limits to that in the case of an elected official disparaging a staff person, and that the person being disparaged can take legal action against anyone who says anything about them in the public.
Yeah.
So they would have to go to court.
Yeah. So I know that we are talking kind of about code of conduct, expectations, civility, you know, within the COG. I know we as a board ourselves will be trying to get better understandings of our roles and responsibilities and conduct as well. And so hopefully, again, we can move forward with that education on our end and adopting something that feels helpful. And maybe that can add to whatever we do at a COG level as well. Another piece we had talked about in exec committee was concern about meeting attendance. And so there had been some individuals, elected officials, who have expressed concern about how frequently we meet for the COG. And I think some psychoeducation was, you know, provided that, you know, we just need to meet a minimum of 6 times, and it doesn't need to be monthly. And we have already had half of that satisfied. And so I think the plan was, you know, moving forward, anytime we cancel, you know, a meeting, putting in there the articles of agreement and how often we need to meet as a COG, just for educational purposes for elected officials. But I think in large part, it just seems like there's a lot of behaviors that elected officials are engaged in that are not as helpful for the larger body and the staff who are actually doing the work, and hopefully some changes can be made sooner rather than later, so that we can just make sure that we're all working on the same page in a civil way, and continue to improve our morale, you know, for staff. So yeah, some hard discussions, but we'll get some things figured out there. Any other comments about committees?
Just that the Facilities Committee also met and did not meet because we didn't have a quorum.
Yeah. And that was noted as well, that a lot of committees have not been having quorums and have needed to be canceled. And so again, I think this also speaks to, like, people are busy and we get that. And yeah, so I would also encourage us, and I know I need to improve in this area as well, to make sure when those messages are going out about meetings that we actually register, because that helps staff understand if we're going to have a quorum or not. And it saves them getting there and showing up and then elected officials not being present. So, all right, if there's nothing else, any other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yay.
Adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, CNET.